What's up, Fancred? Welcome to the NFL Combine Preview Show. I am Bill Enright, ffchamps.com. He is Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, the CEO of Football Game Plan. He is live in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. Emory, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Bill. I appreciate you having me on. Excuse the hotel room behind me, but I'm ready here. I'm here to talk football.
What do you got back there? I see a refrigerator. What, are you living large?
Hey, man, sometimes you got to have the suite. You know, the czar comes to town. They put the czar up in a good spot.
As they should. This man knows it all. He's been doing game analysis for all these college prospects. I can't think of anyone better to help us preview the NFL Combine, and it's going to start in the next couple of days with the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, all the linemen, the defensive backs, the linebackers. It's all going down in the next couple of days. Emory's going to be there for it all. We're going to get his thoughts on all these incoming prospects for these new rookies in the NFL. But before we do that, if you guys want to ask a question, your audience, this is your show too. Please hit that fan line button in the top right-hand screen. One caveat, though. Once you're in the queue, once our producer gets you on that fan line, you can't touch anything else on your screen. Otherwise, you're going to get bumped off. So don't try to text your friends. Just stay still. We'll get to you as fast as possible. I promise we want to get a lot of questions today from the fans. Emory, let's start off with my first question for you, though. The quarterbacks. It's such a passer-driven league that the quarterbacks, and probably rightfully so, right? They get the most attention. So we have a handful, 5 quarterbacks maybe, that are all in that borderline round one conversation. What are you seeing on film as who's the top quarterback prospect for 2018?
That's a great question because all these guys bring something different to the table. And I think by far the best quarterback in this draft class is Lamar Jackson. The reason why I say that is because he can do everything that you want a quarterback to do. And if I'm a defensive coordinator, the one guy I do not want to face is the guy that can make it an 11-on-11 game. So you look at Lamar Jackson's skill set, he can attack all quadrants of the field. Where he's most impressive, quite honestly, and contrary to popular belief, is inside the pocket. Where people talk about his inaccuracies, I think that happens more so outside the pocket. And the biggest reason why is because he's such an explosive athlete to where when you're throwing on the move, you got to be under control. And if you're explosive and you're fast, you're not going to be as under control, which is why the ball tends to go wherever it goes when he's throwing on a run. But when he's back there in the pocket, he can drop dime after dime. And I think that's the clear-cut top quarterback in this class. And not to mention, I always bring up this play because this is exactly what he brings to the table. It was in the Tax Slayer Bowl against Mississippi State. And when you have a guy 3rd and 15, the 3rd and 19, backed up on their own end, you have great coverage in the secondary. Here comes Lamar Jackson, rips off a 75-yard run. Now they're inside the red zone on their own end. So what can you do defensively when you just had the perfect defense called? So I think he's a clear-cut top quarterback. And I think a guy like Darnold, I like him a little bit more than Rosen. Darnold I like because he has the athleticism to where he can get himself out of a jam. And you have to be able to move in this day and age of the NFL. Gone are the days where the defensive ends are 280, 290. These guys are now 245, 250-ish, and they can run. And if your quarterback is a sitting duck, you're going to find yourself in a lot of backed up situations offensively. And Darnold still has upside in this game. He's fearless in the pocket. He can get outside the pocket. I like that about his game. And I think the third quarterback for me will be Rosen, because Rosen plays the game how people like to stereotype and say he's clean, he's pretty in the pocket, he throws a great ball, his setup is perfect. But I also believe that Rosen does do a lot of things exceptionally well in the short to intermediate passing game, which is where you really have to win in the NFL. Yeah, the deep ball is nice, and people dig the deep ball, but the short to intermediate passing game, I think, is what helps move you down the field, and that's where he excels.
I want to backtrack a little bit. One of my questions to you was going to be, where is the love for Lamar Jackson? Why is he not getting the hype that he deserves? You mentioned that he's great from the pocket. I love his playmaking skills. More rushing yards than Saquon Barkley. Okay. I think he had the same amount of rushing touchdowns as Saquon Barkley, and the guy plays quarterback. There are some knocks on him. He did weigh in at 215, and I think Al from Rhode Island wants to know, is that too small of a frame to hold up in the NFL?
That's a great question, man. And I think a lot of people have that concern. There's no footage of him ever getting hurt. And here's the difference between, and why I always say size doesn't matter. When you look at Lamar Jackson's running ability, he's not a reckless runner like a Michael Vick was, like a Carson Wentz is.
Or an RG3.
RG3 was a reckless runner. Guys that are under control, Steve Young, Russell Wilson, Vince Young was under control. You don't really see guys like Vince Young or Cam Newton take big shots when they're running. Right. The big shots they take come from inside the pocket. So when you're under control, and that's the unique part about, and I always have this thing about running backs as well. When you have the ball in your hands, you control angles. You control how people attack you. You control whether or not you're going to take this shot or deliver this blow or save yourself for another down. And I think that's where a guy like Lamar Jackson has been able to persevere throughout the 3 years at Louisville. When he first got there, he literally looked like a sour punch straw. And then you saw him add weight this past season, and he's continued to bulk up to where he's like 215. So, but he's been able to protect himself. And that's the key. How do you protect yourself? Which is why those quarterbacks that we talked about earlier that have been injured because they run reckless, that's the difference between a guy like Lamar Jackson, despite him being only 215.
So Jackson did measure in at 6'2" and a quarter. I think a lot taller than some people suggested. I want to stick with him because I know you're not like a hot take guy that you say, Lamar Jackson is my number one quarterback this year just to get headlines. You watch the film. You analyze what these players can do, their skill set. So I do want to harp on this a little bit more with Lamar Jackson because I think it's interesting. I think it's great you have him as your number one prospect at the quarterback position. A lot of these other draft guru guys, NFL Network has one, ESPN has one, they all say, oh, well, Lamar Jackson really should transition to wide receiver now until it's too late in his career. Why are those guys idiots?
Because they don't understand how valuable athleticism is at the quarterback position. When you are out there just basic football, offense, defense, right? And your quarterback can't move like a Lamar Jackson. It doesn't provide that threat. Let's say your quarterback is a Tom Brady, right? Great quarterback. But the defense still has the advantage. It's still 11-10 because the free safety doesn't have to worry about Tom Brady taking off. The Mike backer doesn't have to worry about Tom Brady taking off. So they can devote more guys into coverage to take away certain windows. Now, Tom Brady has pocket mobility and is able to find the open guy. When you have a guy like Lamar Jackson, like an Aaron Rodgers, like Steve Young, like a Russell Wilson, like a Frank Tarkenton, now you have to designate a guy to watch him and stay in the box to spy on him, thus taking one guy out of coverage. And they tend to dictate coverage because you can't play man-to-man defense a lot against a mobile quarterback because as soon as those cornerbacks turn their backs or as soon as those linebackers run with the backs going out in the route, guess what? The quarterback is taking off, and it's a 4-by-1 relay to the end zone. So they dictate how you play them defensively. You can only play a certain amount of zones, very limited man. You have to keep a guy in to spy on him, which opens up another passing window. So it's not even about the running ability. It's the threat of him being able to run that causes all kinds of problems for defense. Even your defensive line can't get up the field like they normally would against a quarterback that's not as mobile. They have to really just, maintain the line of scrimmage and hope that he doesn't take off so they could be in position to make a play. So that's why when you look at a team that has that has a mobile quarterback and you look at their sack numbers, they're not high because the offensive line, they'll say, oh, wow, the offensive line looks great. Well, no, the defensive line is not rushing. Case in point, Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M. How many tackles he got drafted in the first round because they thought they were great pass protectors, but really those defensive ends weren't rushing up the field because if they took off, guess who else was taking off? Johnny Manziel.
Right. All right, so you gave me your top three. Lamar Jackson at number one, Sam Darnold number two. Which Josh did you say for three? Allen or Rosen?
Josh Rosen at 3.
Rosen at 3. Okay, who's 4 and 5?
4 is actually Baker Mayfield. I think Mayfield has game a lot like Case Keenum, and I liked Case Keenum coming out of Houston. I was probably one of the only ones rallying for Case Keenum because I like what he did at Houston. I thought he was, a guy that was able to work in the intermediate game a lot, short, quick passes, the timely shot deep down the field. Where I didn't like Case Keenum was versus pressure, and that was huge in that Conference USA championship game against Southern Miss. And Southern Miss defense was one of the best in the country at the time. They turned up the pressure, turned up the blitzes on Keenum, and he folded. If they won that game, Houston was going to the BCS. Remember, they were undefeated going into that championship game against Southern Miss. They lost that game because the pressure was up, and boom, they didn't go to the BCS. I see the same things with Mayfield. If you think about it, look back at the Clemson game last year in the playoffs. Pressure, bust the pipes. You look at this game, this playoff game against Georgia, they took the ball out of his hand in the fourth quarter. They went to the tailback and not to the Heisman Trophy winner back there to lead them to a victory. They really didn't trust Baker Mayfield because in the second half, you started to see Georgia turn up the heat. The pressure started to get to Baker Mayfield. He was a little bit rattled in the pocket and wasn't really seeing the field clearly. So those things are things you have to worry about, and you have to worry about that as him moving forward. As many spread quarterbacks move forward, the hash marks in college football, they're so wide. You spread the field, you create big windows, you create non-pressure situations. In the NFL, the hash marks are closer, which means everything is condensed. The pressure comes faster. The windows are tighter, and you have to really stand in there and take a shot or be ready to throw the football in the face of pressure. And we still haven't seen a guy like Mayfield do that. And at number 5, I have a guy that I think that's pretty solid, nice mid-round type selection in Kyle Loletta out of Richmond, who performed well at the Senior Bowl. I thought he was very accurate throwing the football. He's probably the most accurate quarterback in his draft class. He doesn't have the real powerful arm, but I do think he has enough arm to where he can be successful in the league.
No Josh Allen, no Mason Rudolph.
No.
Why no Josh Allen?
Allen is too erratic. But I do see a path for, and this is why people probably love Josh Allen. Because he has a super strong arm, almost Mahomes-like, if not stronger, right? So every throw he makes is going to look awesome, right? Because it's coming fast, right? And people love seeing zip. But truth be told, he's awesome in the red zone, quite honestly, contrary to popular belief. Once he gets inside the 20, he's phenomenal. And I think when you look at that and extrapolate that over a course of a game, you're like, okay, he's good when the field is smaller. So you have to make tight window throws. You have to fit it into tight spaces. But if you put him in the middle of the field where the options are open, the spaces are wide, that shows how inaccurate he really is. So for a guy like that, you have to put him on a pitch count, so to speak. No more than 22 passes a game because it goes from being a sniper to a wild gunsman. He just a guy that's gonna a gun
all over the place.
All over, right? So keep it short, keep it concise, have him operate off play action, really have him work certain routes like comebacks, square ends, anything that you could see him definitely hit a target, but anything that requires touch or maybe some anticipation, that's not his game. That's why he rated a little bit lower. But I do see a path for success for those reasons that I mentioned.
We are talking with Emory Hunt. He is the czar of the playbook, CEO of Football Game Plan. Emory is live at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. We do have some questions from the chat room. I would love for someone to hit that fan line button in the top right-hand corner of the Fancred app. And remember, once the producer puts you into the queue, into backstage, you just can't touch anything on your phone. We'll get to you as soon as possible. Couple questions from the chat room. Bobby wants to know, who is this year's Dak Prescott? The Cowboys got him, what was he, a 4th-round pick? But probably the best rookie quarterback, Carson Wentz and the Rams, Jared Goff. They both kind of caught up in their second year, but Dak Prescott looked good year 1 and year 2. Is there anyone that reminds you of Dak this year out of this QB class?
Well, let's say we go through history, right? Just recent history. And you look at guys that played in the Senior Bowl. Dak was the MVP in the Senior Bowl, correct? Loletta was the MVP in the Senior Bowl. I think he could be that guy. I know some people are going to point to Loletta, and that's a fair point because of how he was able to step in that ball game and instantly catch fire. He makes good decisions with the football. He's a very good athlete, so he can get yards on the ground with his legs. Not Lamar Jackson like, but a guy that can definitely pick up a first down or two that if you're not careful. Also, keep an eye on a guy like J.T. Barrett, man. I think guys like J.T. Barrett, Kellen Moore, and we're seeing it now with a guy at Washington and Jake Browning. You know, for some reason, people don't like these guys as games for they don't have the flashy arm, they're not the explosive speed. They're average looking, but they don't lose games. So I think a guy like Barrett could be a solid number 2. But if I had to pick a Dak Prescott, it would be Kyle Loletta out of Richmond.
Let's go to Robbie in Vermont. I wonder if Robbie's going to get Emory. By the way, we're supposed to get, you're from the same area I am, North Jersey, New York City. We're supposed to get dumped with snow tomorrow. It's a good thing you're in Indianapolis. I wonder if Robbie's dealing with that Northeastern too. What's up, Robbie? How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, and I'm actually not. I'm okay with the snow. I got a ski pass, so I want to make the most out of that money.
Which mountain?
Stowe.
Ah, you must have big bucks.
I'm a college student. I got a discount.
Oh, nice. I like that, Robbie. What's your question for Emory?
So, is there one drill at the combine that says the most about a player, or is it very positional based?
Great question, Robbie. Emory, do we put too much emphasis on the combine? These guys are not in pads. They're in shorts and a t-shirt. Robbie has a great question here. Which drill is the most important that we can really gain some knowledge about their potential in the NFL?
It's a great question, man, because when you look at it, you know, football is played in pads. So what we're seeing is football-related workouts. I think a lot of people confuse the two. And so each one is position specific. I think the biggest indicator of success, in my opinion, is the defensive back drills where you have them doing the W drill, like backpedal, plant, come forward, backpedal, plant, come forward, or the weave drill where they're backpedaling, they're turning their hips, then they have to flip their hips once again and turn and track the football. If you can't move your hips, and playing defensive back is all about hands, hips, and feet. And so if you can't do that, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so how fluid can you move is going to be key. And I think that's the biggest drill here, especially for defensive backs. I think that's the one that I look at and see how fluid guys are. Because if you're tight-hipped or stiff in the hips, you're going to get beat a lot on Sundays.
Also, just my personal note, keep an eye out for Mo Hurst out of Michigan, defensive lineman. Grew up with that kid. Kid's got a motor like I've never seen before.
Hey, I love the personal plugs. Robbie, enjoy that powder day up at Stowe this weekend. Thanks for the question,
Absolutely.
man. Emory, you know, it's funny. I did want to ask you this a little bit later, but since Robbie touched on it, I mean, coming into the combine, we see prospects have a certain grade, and then all of a sudden after the combine weekend, you see them jump up 2 or 3 rounds because they had an incredible combine. At what point do we say, you know what, the NFL Combine's great for NFL GMs, coaches to get to interview these guys, see them work out a little bit, but we're just giving way too much power to what they're doing on the field in that skin tight Under Armour or whatever Nike clothing that it really, you know, John Ross ran the fastest 40 time ever, beat Chris Johnson 4.23 or whatever last year, and he played 3 games as a rookie. So, like, how do we just put too much emphasis on the combine?
I think so, man. At the end of the day, you have to understand it's just a workout. So don't look at this workout and completely erase everything that you watched on film. Yeah. Like, for instance, did I need the 40-yard dash of Chris Johnson to realize he was fast? You know, you saw it on film. And just key points. Like, listen, if they have you returning kicks in college, you're fast. Yeah. Punts, you don't have to be fast, but kicks, you have to be fast. And so when you watch guys like Chris Johnson run fast, yeah, he's fast on film. Oh, wow, so-and-so measured at 6'8". Of course, you could see how tall he is out there on the field. And, his arm length is too much. Can he block? You know, if he's doing it in college, he's doing it in the pros. And I always love to bring up the Tariq Cohen factor because people were, well, he's 5'6", he's only 185. Can he do it in the NFL? Well, if you pop on his tape against, let's say, North Carolina, it was a 60-yard run that he ran. It was a dive play. So it went right up the middle, broke maybe like 4 or 5 tackles, 60 yards down the field, did not get touched. And so all of that translates. Like, if he's out there running fast and making people miss, that it doesn't matter if you're playing at North Carolina A&T or if you're playing against the Chicago Bears. It doesn't matter. So you have to remember, the tape is everything. You want to see guys get out here and compete and try to do their best to show themselves well in front of scouts and personnel decision makers and coaches. But you also have to understand this is just a workout. And if these guys are doing it out here but not on film, then that's a problem. Maybe they're not that good. If they're doing it on film but not out here, then you say, okay, well, maybe it's just a workout. Maybe it is a workout because on film they're doing exactly what I expect them to do when we draft them and put them out there in our uniform.
Last year, you and I did a kind of like NFL draft preview show together, and you said, Bill, slow down with your bald head. Christian McCaffrey is going to be fine. And you had this line, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but you can't hit what you can't catch, and you can't tackle what you can't get your hands on or something. And it was a great line because it applies for guys like McCaffrey, Tariq Cohen. And that always stuck with me.
Well, and you're right. It's a great line. You can't hit what you can't catch. You can't hurt what you can't touch.
That's it.
Right. And so when you look at guys like that, for instance, I always use this example on Twitter. If Barry Sanders played today, they'd say he's a 6th-round pick that doesn't like contact. But all he did was make people miss. And he's 5'8", 205. Give me the game. It's about it. The football is a game that's about touchdowns, scoring points, making people miss, trying not to get tackled. Those guys will always have a place. And if you're able to do that at an elite level, I want you on my team, and I want to give you the ball as many times as possible.
For the last maybe 10 years, the running back position kind of fell off in the first round. The last 3 or 4 years, we've seen some superstars go in the top 10. Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette. Everyone pretty much is pointing to Saquon Barkley as that top running back this year. And I think the hype train is going to leave the station this weekend. This is, like you said, a workout. And when he hits those weights, he squats over 400 pounds. He deadlifts over 500. He's probably going to do 25 reps at 225 on the bench. The Saquon Barkley hype train this weekend, it's going to be out of control, right?
If he runs a 4.3, then you're going to see people, go above and beyond with these hyperbole.
Yeah.
He's a great tailback. If I'm Cleveland, I'm taking him number 1. But
really?
Yes.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. I think you could build around DeShone Kizer. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. He had a bad year, but even when I asked John Dorsey today at the combine on the podium, like, can you trust a quarterback or get a real good read on a quarterback that doesn't have a stable situation around him? How important is stabilizing the situation for a guy, especially going from year 1 to year 2? Right. He was like, you're absolutely right. He said, we have to, make sure quarterbacks are set up properly for success. He said some guys were able to jump in right away and have success. Other guys struggled for a year and then were able to make that leap in year 2. And when I talked about the running back position with him, he smirked and was short. I was like, how important is it to have a tailback to be able to get out there and score from anywhere on the field? He was like, sounds like it's a tailback you want on your team. Then later on, I asked him, what dangers does that put a defense in to have a back that can literally, flip field position or score from anywhere? And he said, that's the back that, if it's that high, I'm taking him. If that's the guy, I want a good football player. So if I'm reading between the lines, he really loves Saquon Barkley. And I know a lot of people say, well, take a quarterback. Well, Kizer is not that bad. And he talked about that. He said he had an up and down season, but he got better every week. He was
a rookie quarterback on a bad team with no number 1 wide receiver.
And no running back.
And he lost his left tackle.
Bingo. And so now you add all those components. You get Gordon back for a full season now. Coleman's going to be healthy. You have a chance to draft a tailback in Saquon Barkley. Great draft for receivers to add a third guy here, or maybe you find a way to get a Jarvis Landry. But you have two good receivers. You got two good tight ends. Your line should be better. So Barkley, if he gets out here and runs a 4-3, I think you're going to start to hear the talk that, yeah, maybe the Browns can build around DeShone Kizer when that should have been the talk all season long. Now, if they do take Barkley at 1, then with all these quarterbacks that people are saying that are great, that number 4 pick is going to be like Boardwalk and Park Place for the Browns. They can get a lot players and picks for number 4, or what they could just take the 4th best player in the draft, whoever that guy may be.
You kind of answered 2 questions from the chat room with that one statement that you think Saquon should go number 1. Al wanted to know who was going to be the top draft pick, and then Bennett wanted to know, should the Giants take Barkley at number 2? Well, Bennett, I'm sorry, but according to Emory, he's not even going to be there for you. For the Giants.
But I'll tell you this, though.
Go ahead.
If Barkley goes 1 and you're the New York Giants at 2, take Lamar Jackson. Because you look at the division. You have Dak Prescott,
Mobile.
Carson Wentz. Mobile. And if you let Lamar Jackson fall to the Redskins, I'm guaranteeing you that the Redskins will leap at the chance to take him. Yeah. So if you have an opportunity to stay competitive within the division with a young, talented quarterback, especially when you're at number 2, take him.
Any other running back going to go in the first round this year?
I think you could see two more. I think, or maybe 4. So that's why I don't like when people say, well, the Browns should take someone else because they can get a running back in round 2. Well, who's to say that there's not going to be a run on tailbacks, right? And so I could see a guy like Darius Geis going in the first round. LSU. Sony Michel of Georgia, I could see him because of his versatile skill set. People will look at him in the eyes of Kamara and say, okay, that's a value that goes in the first round. Ronald Jones of USC, with all the speed in the world, if he gets a lane, forget about it. Get the special teams unit out there to kick the extra point. And you look at a guy like Rashad Penny of San Diego State. He's going to probably wow a lot of people out here and could be one of those sneaky late first round picks. I would take him in the first round because I think he's phenomenal. He's actually my second graded running back in this draft class. So I think those guys are the ones that get talked about a lot. So you could see maybe 3 or 4 backs go in round 1.
Oh, I like that. That would be fun for fantasy. You know, I'm a big fantasy guy at heart, so that would be certainly a lot of fun. Again, we're talking with Emory Hunt. He's the czar of the playbook, CEO of Football Game Plan. If you want to ask him a question, hit the fan line button in the top right-hand side of the Fancred app. Just one thing, you can't leave the app. You just have to stay still. Don't touch anything on your phone. We'll get to you as soon as possible. We do have a question from Matt. And I can't fact check this on the spot. I know nothing about it, to be honest with you. So, Emory, if I'm putting you on the spot, I apologize. Is Lamar Jackson being represented by his mom?
Yeah, he is. He doesn't have an agent, and that's been another issue for a lot of people because he's bucking the process. Yeah. But the funny part is he's staying out of the spotlight, and it's a problem. So, but if he was in the spotlight, it would have been a problem. Right. So I don't get it. I from what I've gathered, his mom is handling. She keeps a tight knit around him because, I mean, think about it. Look at the discussion about him having to move to receiver. And all the talk about him. Well, maybe he struggles with accuracy. Maybe he struggles reading defenses, and she knows that. He's going to be portrayed negatively anyway, so why not control the message? Have him say nothing and have him go out there and let his play do the talking, that's how it's supposed to be. Now, I guarantee once he signs a contract, he'll find representation. But right now, that's the other part you don't see. The reason why agents are important because of all the pub that you see other quarterbacks get in the national media. Lamar Jackson hasn't been getting that national pub because he doesn't have anybody pushing those coffers to the top to where guys can start talking about Lamar Jackson. But this approach is probably geared toward allowing him just to focus on his task at hand. You saw him come into the combine at 216. We're going to see him take the field on Saturday, I believe, and throw and run and go through the whole workout. So he's going to probably let his play and performance do the talking more so than any agent could do at this point.
Emory, I've been following you on all the different social media channels, your Instagram, your Twitter. Where was that delicious steak that you had? Was that at St. Elmo's?
That was at St. Elmo's. It was the first part you saw was the the cocktail shrimp
Yes.
with that horseradish sauce that opens up all your pores and all your sinuses, right?
Nice.
And then I had the steak with the lobster mac. Oh no, I'm sorry, the king crab mac and cheese and Brussels. I've been on this Brussels sprouts kick for about 6 months.
I love Brussels sprouts. Why do they get such a bad rap? If Brussels sprouts were called angel kisses, everyone would love them. Okay, they'd be the top vegetable. They're delicious, but they get such a bad rap.
I am upset at my parents in my childhood for never introducing me to Brussels sprouts. They are phenomenal.
So what did we learn today? We learned Lamar Jackson is the top quarterback in this year's prospect. So Quan Barkley, he's going to impress everyone as he should, but we may see 3 or 4 other running backs, as Emory suggested, in the first round. And finally, the most important, Brussels sprouts, top-notch vegetable. Emory, thanks so much for joining me, man. I always have fun when I talk to you. I hope I see you soon.
You will, man. I appreciate you having me on. Always a great time. Thanks to the fans out there, too, for their great questions.
Absolutely. Thanks for everyone out there watching Fancred on air. Enjoy the NFL Combine. We'll see you soon.